Morning, everybody. The wait is always worth it at DLD. Wonderful to have the three of you here. We're going to talk a little bit about leadership in an age of digital transformation with three panelists here today who have differing but enormous experience in this area. Maybe just as a way of starting off, I know Steffi's done a very quick introduction. Each of you could maybe tell us a little bit about, Tarek, maybe you could start, tell us a little bit about yourself and your role.
Yeah, sure. Happy to be here. I'm Tarek, 31 years old. Founded a couple of companies in my life. My latest company was Is About You 6 years ago. We are a fashion e-commerce company targeting a young audience in 10 European markets. Did 750 million in revenue last year. Grew by 60% and have the vision to become the global #1 in young fashion e-commerce.
Thanks.
Oh.
And based in Germany.
Claudia, can you beat that?
Yes. So, hello, good morning. I'm Claudia Nemat. I run technology, the networks, IT, innovation, product platforms, and security as member of the board of Deutsche Telekom. And whoever has some further ideas on the network, I'm here the entire day, so I'm happy to listen to that.
Michael.
Yes, thank you. Thanks for having us here. My name is Michael. I'm responsible for HVB, UniCredit here in Germany. I'm a banker by definition, and if you think banking these days is a challenge, I'm also a father of 2 daughters. To be a good father for 2 teenagers is even more challenging, but it is a pleasure to be here. Thank you.
I know the feeling.
That's true.
Okay, so we have a very, very competitive group. They keep raising the bar when it comes to parenting or running businesses. So, Claudia, let's talk with you first of all, if you don't mind. Deutsche Telekom is in the process of becoming a software business. You're at the heart of that in terms of your role. Rapid innovation in technology obviously means that there's a skills gap in many organizations. How are you tackling that?
So first of all, I must say Deutsche Telekom is celebrating our 25th anniversary this year, and we have proven pretty adaptable. If I compare it back to the Bundespost time. Now, what are we having beyond technological change?
Yeah.
We're actually dealing with 2 other disruptions. Number 1, natural resource consumption is coming to a turning point. And now as an industry, we can say for any ton of CO2 we produce, we save 2 tons of CO2 elsewhere. But reality is also that the 5G networks consume 2 to 3 times as much energy as the existing networks. And the other thing is the increasing technological conflict between the United States and China, which actually also triggers a lot of changes. So therefore, our question is not only how to enhance capabilities, and I must say, like any technological company, we need more software engineers, more architects, more agile developers, more consumer experience designers. We need, like any technology company, more of that. But equally important, or maybe even more important, is the question, how do you make people embrace the idea of lifelong learning? Yeah? Lifelong learning, and that in essence has a lot to do with trust. Because imagine, I'm 51, but imagine you are a super senior expert and you have done that throughout your career. And now you unlearn and start something new and you start junior. So therefore, making that the new norm, the strategic process to have lifelong learning is key. And that requires leaders who don't believe that they know everything better than anyone else, but rather create an environment in which people who know can do. Now, so how does that work practically? Very short, because I don't have the silver bullet. Beyond your own behavior as a leader. What works pretty well in Deutsche Telekom, if you prove in a smaller operation. If it works, you repeat in a larger operation and then you scale. Yeah, for example, we always started the digital transformation in smaller countries.
Yeah.
And then people were laughing. We started in North Macedonia and said, oh my God, this is super small, yeah. But then Slovakia, then Croatia, and now we are finishing the digitization of the networks in Germany. So in the skill transformation, we started to pilot new ways of working and skill academies in 2017 and 18. And last year, we had the first academy where we gave people who never coded before, who had little coding experience, the chance to participate on the job training and in the academy. And the moment we had the first people, even from call centers, who started to code and then would be assigned to practical projects, you start to get credibility as a leader. So the short answer for Deutsche Telekom would be you have to prove in a smaller operation that it works, create trust, and then people start to follow over time.
Right.
Yeah, so that's in essence it. But the biggest thing is lifelong learning.
Okay, so Michael, Claudia touched on the idea of leaders who just acknowledge that they don't know it all. Maybe you could talk a little bit about that change in mindset, the way that today's successful leaders are really kind of mobilizers and facilitators rather than top-down managers.
I mean, following your argumentation, and if you look from a bird's eye perspective, that all comes from a tremendous change in customer behavior. Mm-hmm. So the traditional way in doing things, and here is one department and another department and the third department, and you have specialists, and then the fourth department will tell you why all the three before you were wrong. That simply doesn't work, because what client wants from us, at least from the banking industry, is a seamless interaction. They want to have a clear understanding that someone is taking care of the basic need beyond banking. And to fulfill that, we have to do exactly what Claudia was saying. We have to untrain a little bit the specialist. Yeah. We have to make the whole organization more flexible, more adaptable. That's why, similar to that what you have done in Eastern Europe, is we established 6 global end-to-end rooms, where we put all the people in these rooms which are responsible from legal, compliance, product, marketing, and what do I know. And they have to come up as a team with a new solution, which first of all brings people together, which secondly brings also the people in the shoes of the others, which speeds up the process in our organization dramatically. That is the good news. The more challenging news for us is, interestingly enough, even if people like to work in this kind of way, at a certain point in time, they are looking for a hierarchy. All of a sudden, they are coming up and saying, holy moly, who is now the leader of this room? But the idea is there is no leader of this room. And this is how we try to develop the organization to be more flexible, more adaptable, and to speed up to fulfill the client's needs.
It's interesting because you're both talking, you discussed maybe getting kind of groups of people together, small groups of people together. Claudia, you talked about trying it in sort of smaller marketplaces. So that's from the perspective, obviously, of two very large kind of comparatively organizations. If we can come to you now, Tarek, from a very different perspective. So you grew a business from 30 people, you bootstrapped it, there's 700 employees now, I believe. I think it'd be really interesting for us all to know a little bit about how your leadership style has changed maybe during that period of scaling to a business where I'm sure when you had 30 employees, you knew everyone. 700, it's a very different kind of challenge. Can you talk a little bit about that maybe, please?
Yeah, sure. I think, first of all, we are selling fashion, but we are actually a technology company. And one thing we realized quite early was that doubling the team size of a software team actually doesn't provide double the output. Often you double the team size and there's actually no further output. So for us, the question was really how do we scale our organization while finding out that the sweet spot of a team size, in our case at least, is 5 to 10 people.
Right. And is that the Amazon model of a team like with the size of a pizza?
Yes,
pizza
yes.
Team, right,
so one pizza baker takes one pizza baker 10 minutes to bake a pizza, and it takes 10 pizza bakers probably more than 10 minutes to bake a pizza. This is, I guess, what you're referring to, right? Yeah, so this is pretty true for software development, actually. And so how do you then scale an organization to 700 people if actually there is a limit of 10 people per team? And the way how we try to solve this is by coming up with our own organizational model. We call that model MOVE. And one aspect of this model, it has several aspects, but one of that is actually that we sliced our company into several circles consisting of 5 to 10 people. Each circle has 2 leadership roles, which can be taken interim as well. And one of that role is kind of the COO, being the specialist, and one is the CEO, being responsible for roadmap and stakeholder management. And then these teams actually get clear guidance and instructions from us managing directors of what they shall do, because I believe guidance and leadership is an important thing, even if you deal with young people. But then they have autonomy in the way they do it and how they execute on those tasks, who does what, etc. And we feel this is a good way of scaling our organization and also being very attractive towards young developers and young talents. And then my role obviously has changed over time from doing everything in the beginning to now basically having 3 focus areas. First is hiring, obviously. Secondly, I'm always aligning the roadmap together with our leadership team. And thirdly, the majority of my time actually goes in handling complexity, solving interdependencies between and across teams, and managing overarching strategic projects.
Okay, so there's been a lot of growth in the business, but mostly the people who will work for you are going to be like younger people.
Yes.
I'm interested to get your perspective, Claudia, in terms of 200,000 plus people working for Deutsche Telekom, multiple territories, multiple generations. How do you approach workers as individuals, employees as individuals, and deal with them each in the kind of the most appropriate and constructive way in order to ensure that they're moving forward with the business so you can upskill them?
Yeah, first of all, I have a very practical recommendation, because what we realized is that leadership training, and specifically these academies, for example, the AI Academy takes 12 months, 6 on the job, 6 offline and online. It costs a lot of money. Here's my recommendation for the CFO. What we did is, basically in technology and innovation, I said, we are not going to spend any more money for early retirement or severance packages. We take the entire amount of money and invest that into our people. So I had the CFO as a friend, and that's very important in approaching the people, the unions and the workers' council, which in such an organization is actually pretty important. And then on an individual level, it's of course not one size fits all. So it has to be really targeted to the specific requirements of the project and to figure out what are exactly the capabilities we need. Yeah. And then to be very open and transparent and saying, what is the right mix between people I might need to get from outside and veterans that need to do skill building. And then what I realized, when people start to trust, if it's clear that you don't do that training as part of a pro forma, but that you really have a role in that project for them to play on. Because that's this moment of trust. If I go through that experience, am I relevantly needed in a super then diverse team who actually do that?
Sure.
So these 2 things, first of all, really get alignment with finance, the workers' council, but then find a way to make it practically meaningful for the individual. And I really believe, and at the very beginning people were not really believing that we could go this avenue, but I think there is, also for the demographic development, no other choice than finding a brilliant way of bringing the super veterans and young people fresh together in a new way of working and creating that trust through investing into those programs.
So real intergenerational teams. Michael, I talked about your customers wanting a frictionless experience. Let's talk a little bit about sort of like maybe some of the people on your team who are members of Generation Alpha. In terms of their roles, they're looking for more than just money. How can a large in an organization like yours really motivate people and give them sort of the types of goals and the types of rewards that they're aiming for, if it's not just about how much money's in their pay packet at the end of the month?
Indeed, in all these recruiting meetings, but in also the meetings we have with our colleagues on the ground, and one shouldn't forget 10 years of financial crisis in the service industry, 10 years of restructuring, that makes something with people, so for the mood and for the spirit. So we need to give them more than just, here is a product and please sell that as much as you can. So it is circled around what is the purpose of the organization. One example I want to give, what we have done, we had quite a big ad gallery. Yeah? I mean, the HypoVereinsbank UniCredit is a 150-year-old organization, and as you can imagine, over the years we collected a lot of pictures. Yeah? Nice ones, big ones, beautiful ones, modern ones, what do I know, all kind of pictures. And at a certain point in time we said, like that's what you said, we want to use this money to fund a better idea, to motivate and to integrate our people to do something for society, because that drives our people. So we founded 15 months ago our social impact bank, where the only idea is to do something good for the society, i.e. we follow up quite a lot of these social entrepreneurs, where you would say, basically that's a good idea. From an economic point of view, that would be hard that they get funding. So this was not, my CFO was not immediately the friend of this idea, but anyway, we did it. And all of a sudden you see this mobilize your troops, because they see and they feel that they can bring in their knowledge in something which is good and brings value to their society. This is one angle where we try to drive what is the purpose of a bank beyond just making money.
So you're thinking about entrepreneurship. You're thinking about how
massively
that relationship can flourish. Tarek, I'm interested to get your perspective, because your average, the person who works for you is around 29. So pretty much all of them they're not even millennials. They're all Generation Alpha, I think, if that's you go for the classical definition of it. Like, what do they want from an organization, from working in a startup? Would they always, do you think, prefer to work in a startup than work in a larger, more traditional company?
Yeah, indeed. 70% of our employees are below age of 30, so very, very young organization. And then I mean, I think I see two things there. So first, I see that young people are increasingly looking for a purpose, as mentioned, a purpose in life, but also a meaningful and a meaningful job and a purpose in their work life. And I see that when young people are looking for a job, they ask themselves if this company is actually part of the problem or part of the solution. And I believe if you as a company are seen as part of the problem, you will have limited access to talent in the future. Because this is a deal breaker now for the young generation, a clear deal breaker, and you can't solve this with money because they are willing to take cuts in the paycheck on this. So I think there is no way around for a company to do more in topics like sustainability, climate, etc. because you will lose your customers, but first you will even lose your talent and the good employees. And there is no way around this. I don't think this will go away in the future. And secondly, what I see is that this concept, I mean, like my parents, for example, my mother, she started 40 years ago or something as a doctor, and she's still in the same job in the same company. And this was a concept a couple of decades before, but what I see now is that young people, they don't even see themselves in the same position for a couple of years. Yeah, so I think if you as a company want to hold your talent, you need to come up with a model on a framework or something, and this is part of this MOVE I mentioned, and this is also why it's called MOVE, because we came up with a framework to basically make it possible for our people in a structured and framed way to switch positions within our company, to take a leadership role, maybe just for 6 months for the beginning, to basically test it out, etc., in order to give people and our employees the possibility to find new challenges within our company and don't have this desire to change jobs. And I think these two aspects, basically having a meaningful job and a purpose, combined with constantly having new challenges and getting new learnings, is a very, very important factor to gain talent. And I have to say, especially in Germany, we need to be aware that talented people with a good education, they have so many opportunities, sure. So they are not waiting for a company to give them an offer. So it's really companies pitching for talent, not talent pitching for the company, and you need to have a good pitch there.
Claudia, do you want to come back on that in terms of like how does a large organization attract the talent it needs when you have you know, sort of businesses like Tarek's that are kind of really kind of built from the ground up with you know, younger talent in mind?
So first of all, by having cool, interesting problems to fix.
Yeah.
And when I look at our smart speaker team, for example, where we were able to hire a lot of talent from Amazon, etc. And I was asking the people, so why are you joining us? So I tell you, because we won't stop until everyone connected, and we will not leave the entire show to US-based or China-based hyperscalers. We make that cool in Europe as well. And then you need to find good formats, like what you do with your own people, how you work in an ecosystem with startups and smaller companies around the world, or even doing, Tarek, what you did in Otto, allowing spin-outs. Yeah? And people with good ideas to go in the spin-out and finding additional investors to that. So you have to be flexible in the format. But what I see that in the end, a lot of people who have super Werkstolz in our company are really triggered by the idea, I don't like the word purpose, not so much anymore, but I use it, by the things about we won't stop until everyone is connected. And then you get up, even in traditional business, very creative ideas. I tell you one for those who haven't heard about it. As it takes on average 2 years in Germany to get the approval for an antenna, in South Korea, it takes 3 weeks for approval and build-up. We created actually a competition for communities. And those communities which have a written confirmation that we can put an antenna there, get preferred treatments. Okay. So I call that creative innovation even in a very traditional field.
Okay, we have a couple of minutes left. I want us to look forward and think about what you're adding. Michael, maybe you could start, and this is a question for each of you, so you guys get a little bit more time to think about it. What does a successful organization look like in 5 to 10 years from now? How will it be different from today, do you think, Michael?
Well, I mean, that also, again, depends of what is the market doing and what clients want from us, basically. But if I would 5 or 6 years ahead, I would see faster and more efficient organization in how we can come up with ideas. How do we test products? Are we able to have a seamless interaction between the online, the offline world? Are we able to manage the omni-channels which are necessary, at least in the financial service industry? So flexibility, adaptability, and participation of all kinds of people in our organization. And the thing about inclusion and diversity is gaining a tremendous momentum. So also on that, I would see going forward a tremendous change.
Okay, very quickly, Claudia and Tarek.
So I would say deeply focused on consumer experience, or I would say even better, human experience, because we shouldn't look as humans only as consumers of our products. Number 2, deeply connected to other businesses and to societies around. And number 3, I would say, and Michael, you said that, more flexible, more liquid. So the traditional organizational unit will no longer be a home. It will be more flexible, more liquid in smaller teams.
Okay, perfect. Tarek?
I think we will see an increasing number of tech players being dominant in industries where 10 years ago nobody would have thought that tech plays a role. I think we will see an increasing number of companies that are focused more on optimizing social impact and, you know, environmental impact rather than shareholder impact.
Yeah.
And thirdly, I think no company will have the chance to not have environmental and society impact as a crucial part of their strategy, because if not, they won't find talent and they won't find customers. So it will be a crucial part of every strategy in every industry, I believe. And it's just a matter of, if you are a consumer company, it will be a bit earlier. If you're a B2B company, it will be a bit, there's a bit more time, but I think the whole economy will deal with this.
Well, I feel like we've barely scratched the surface. We've just started. I'm afraid, though, we're out of time. Please do continue the conversation. Thank you to the three leaders, and I hope that it's inspired all the leaders in the audience to think about what you're adding. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.